This is Pokemon Infinite Fusion, the fan game with over 251,000 different Pokemon combinations. And we're here today to see if we can beat a hardcore Nuzlocke using only Red's team. But we're not going to be using just any version of Red, we're actually going to be using the Red from the Pokemon Adventures manga. Last month I put up a poll seeing if people wanted to see the anime, the game, or manga protagonist runs, and overwhelmingly you guys picked the manga. So for January, we're going to be doing hardcore Nuzlockes of Red, Blue, and Green's teams from the manga. Pokemon Adventures is a lot darker than the anime and much darker than the games ever get, even with some of the evil team leaders literally trying to destroy the world. Since we're only going to be using Red's Pokemon, every single fusion that we use needs to have at least one of his Pokemon included in it. And if we take into account his championship team and Pokemon that we know for sure are in his box, that gives us a total of 10 fusions. The only change I'm going to be making to his team is that with the exception of Pikachu, I'm going to be allowing all of his other Pokemon to reach their final evolutions. And just in case you didn't know, in a hardcore Nuzlocke, if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead. The level cap is the next leader's ace, no active items can be used in battle, and we play the games on set mode. If you like this video, the sound of my voice, and you haven't already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you could give that like button a little tickle, that'd be great as well. The only way I'm going to be able to grow as a creator is with all of your help. So anything you can do would be like super cool. Since I'm going to have access to a total of 10 Pokemon, I'm going to be starting the game with Red's actual starter from the manga, which is a Poliwag. We'll also grab our Bulbasaur from Professor Oak, since that's the Pokemon that's given to him by Professor Oak. And after that, we'll get another one of Red's Pokemon to randomly add to our party every time we get a badge. But without further ado, let's get started. Over on Route 1, we're going to grab ourselves a Tangela. Over on Route 2, we're going to grab ourselves a Weedle. Over on 22, a Rattata, a Pidgey in the Secret Garden, a Hoot in Viridian Forest, and a female Nidoran over on Route 3. For our first fusion pair, we're going to be fusing up our Poly with Tangela to get ourselves this little silly Tanwag. Next up, we're going to fuse Soar with the Nidoran female that we caught to get this adorable little Nidosaur. And now it's time for us to face off against Brock and his rock hard boys. Brock starts off by sending in a Geogy, and we're going to send in Poly. Right away, we're going to go for a super effective bubble, and we can pick up the Yoko on Geogy no problem. Next up is going to come his ace, Dignix. And we outspeed it again, and we can bring this thing down to its sturdy, which is great, lowering its speed even more as it then goes for a bind. And after going for just one more bubble, this hairdo successfully takes down Dignix and we defeat Brock. And when rolling to find out who we get next, it's, funnily enough, his Pikachu, which is the third Pokemon he gets in the manga as well. Over by Mountain, we run into Nurse Joyce heading to this wounded Geodude. It turns out that the nefarious Team Rocket is up to something inside of Mount Moon, including beating up this small rock. Now enter Brock on the back of his Dignix, vowing that he, as a paladin of love and justice, will avenge this fair Geodude and impress his lady Lovejoy. Fully confident in Brock's abilities, Nurse Joy leaves and heads back to the Pokemon Center. But once Nurse Joy leaves, Brock lets us know that he's actually afraid of the dark. It gives us the ability to smash rocks and chase after Team Rocket ourselves. So I guess it's up to us, a small child. And while fighting our way through Mount Moon, Soar is going to go through a couple of evolutions. First, evolving into a Nidosaur. And then he's going to ascend one more time into a Nidosaur. And in Mount Moon itself, we're going to grab ourselves a Cleffa. And since we're here, we're actually going to fuse up Pika with Clefairy, which is funny since Clefairy was supposed to be Ash's starter in the anime, and we're going to get ourselves a Clefchew. And oh my god, look at this thing. At the back of Mount Moon, we run into Team Rocket performing some sort of experiment. It seems like they're attempting some kind of triple fusion, and while that sounds super awesome, we can assume it's bad, because Team Rocket. And after the Rocket Grunts lay down the 3 rocket starters upon the machine, they press the button on the machine. And when it explodes, the 3 rocket starters, all the Grunts and Giovanni, blast off to parts unknown. Sorry dude, but I am not going to stay behind and clean up this mess. And for our troubles, we're going to grab our Helix Fossil. And over on Route 4, we're going to grab a Spearow. Before facing off against Blue, we're going to go ahead and give our Soar a Moonstone to evolve into Nidosaur. We run into Blue over on Nugget Bridge. And since I didn't name him Rando because we're playing the manga, I don't have anything funny or neat to say. So I'll think of something later. Anywho, Blue's going to start out by sending in Neoto, and we send in Pika. I'm going to go for a Nasty Plot on the first turn, as this thing goes for a Poison Sting, which is going to hit us pretty hard, but fortunately a Thundershock takes it down in one shot, which is going to lead into Mantata, who we can outspeed going for a Smoochy Kiss, and we can grab the Yoko on it as well. Next up comes Squirtmillion, who once again we can outspeed and go for a Thundershock and grab ourselves the Yoko. His final Pokemon, just this regular ordinary Abra's gonna come in, but it can't do anything because it's an Abra, and after we scored a crit, we grab ourselves the KO, and we defeat Blue Rando Guy. See you next time, chump. Over on Route 24, we're gonna grab ourselves a Metapod. After fighting our way over to the Cerulean Cape, we run into Bill in his lab, with his best friend Rhydon. It turns out that he's been experimenting with fusing Pokemon with people, and after he hits the button on his machine, it is a total and utter success, but he wanted to maintain his slim build body and not this big burly Rhydon, because how will he hug his children? Anywho, Bill asks if we can go reverse the fusion, and of course I can. So after we do, he emerges from the other side, mostly looking like Bill, but there's a couple of rock hard items underneath that clothing if you catch my drift. I'm talking about his kneecaps, you freaks! And now it's gonna be time for us to take on Misty and her wet and wild water Pokemon. She starts off with Jigglypuff and we send in Pika. And we're going to go for a Nasty Plot right away as this thing goes for a Disarming Voice. And after that, we can fire off a Thundershock, grabbing the KO, which leads into Audio. We're going to go for a Draining Kiss, doing about 60% to heal ourselves back up, as the Audio goes for a Mega Drain, doing about a third to us. We're then going to go for a Thundershock after that, bringing it way down into the red as it fires off a Water Pulse, getting me down below half, which will activate our Berry. Just below half. And after that, one more Smoochy Kiss takes down the Audio, and we defeat Misty. And when rolling on our encounter table, we roll a 5, which means we can pick up V. Now we have a bunch of encounters we can pick up on our way to Surge, first being a Meowth. On Route 6, we're going to grab ourselves a Mankey. In Vermilion City, a Krabby. In Ekans on Route 11, and before heading over to the SSN, Polly is going to evolve into its next form of Tanwhirl. We run into Blue over on the SSN, where there's a small crowd of onlookers, excited to meet the famous Blue Oak. He tells them all that he's caught over 40 different kinds of Pokemon. He loves getting down on his knees and crawling around in grassy areas. But I only see 4 Pokemon strapped to your belt, Blue. Why are you lying? He starts off with Neoto and we send in Pika. And after attempting to go for an evasion strategy, we ultimately fail immediately. And I'm then going to go for a Nasty Plot as he goes for a Focus Energy. From here, I can go for a Thundershock and quickly grab the Yoko. Once our Berry heals us up a bit, Starburst's going to come in next, and we can still outspeed it and grab ourselves the Yoko on it as well. Next up comes Vermilion, and I'm going to stay in, hoping I can take this thing down as we get it down way into the red, and he goes for a Withdraw. After that, Rando heals up with a Super Potion, and we go for another Thundershock, bringing it down super low, before ultimately taking it out. Now at just 4 HP, enter Mankate. And we're going to swap out Pika, and I'm going to send in Sar as he goes for a Seismic Toss. After that, he goes for a Karate Chop, doing barely anything, and we miss the Poison Powder as he goes for another Seismic Toss. Once we heal up a bit with our Barrow, we do manage to get the poison off, and it's going to start doing its thing. After that, it goes for a Pursuit, and we can go for a Superpower, grabbing the Yoko on this thing. And with that, we've defeated Blue and all 40 of his Pokemon. And now it's time for us to face off against Lieutenant Surge and his shocking team. Surge is going to start off by sending in a Voltbee, and we can send in Pika. And my plan here is to hopefully just stack up and sweep, since this thing isn't really going to be able to do a whole lot of damage to me as we get to +4 and it sets up a Light Screen. Now that we're at +6 for our evasion, it misses another Metal Claw, and we can start stacking up Nasty Plots instead. It does manage to hit us with a Spark, doing a considerable amount of damage, and a second one knocks us down to 18. But we can go for a Smoochy Kiss, bringing it down pretty low as we heal back up, and it fortunately misses. Surge then heals up with a Super Potion, and we can take it out. So we're now at +4 special attack and +6 evasion as Pika comes in next. And after it misses a quick attack, we can go for a Smoochy Kiss, KOing it in 1. Which leads into Rybuzz, his most ferocious Pokemon, who manages to connect with a Thunder Punch, doing almost half to us despite the fact that it's not very effective. And we go for a Draining Kiss, doing just about 60% as he heals up with a Citrus Berry, and then we can get back up to full. After that, the Rivals is going to start trying to copy us, going for a double team as its own, but we can go for a smooch, bringing him down wicked low. After that, Surge is going to use a super potion, and going for another smooch, we got it down low again, but now we are starting to miss. But once we break through, we grab the KO, and we defeat Surge, with the help of Pika. And if I remember correctly, in the manga, Lieutenant Surge tries to use Thunder on Red, and then I'm pretty sure throws him into the ocean, so we beat him before he can do any of that. And with another badge means we can roll on our table, and this time we roll a 6 so we can peek up NATO. Over on 10, we're going to grab ourselves a Voltorb. In Rock Tunnel, we grab a 2-for-1 with Geochop. On our way out, we're also going to grab our Gift Hone Edge. Technically, Red's V can transform into Flareon, Jolteon, and Vaporeon all at will, but once it finally figures out what it wants to be, it stays in Espeon, so we're going to go with that. And since I think it's a really neat type combination, we're actually going to fuse up our Espeon with Persian and get ourselves Epsilon. Additionally, now that we've gotten the Labyrinth Town, we have more access to Moonstone, so we can evolve Pika into Clefchu. I absolutely adored the previous evolution sprite, but this one being a tiny little nugget is also excellent. We're also going to use the stone that I grabbed in Vermilion City to evolve Polly into a Tanrath. On Route 8, we're going to grab ourselves a Growlithe. On Route 7, we're going to grab ourselves a Zubat, our non-V EV over in the Celadon condos. And after we take our second Eevee and evolve it into a Vaporeon, we are going to fuse it up with Nido to get ourselves Vapor King. And I love this just blue Nidoking sprite, but this more monstrous sprite looks like more of a fusion between the two of them. Plus, I believe that this thing is the Drill Jet Pokemon. After getting a little closer to the level gap, we run into Blue over in Pokemon Tower, where he is mourning the loss of his Manecate. The young monkey rat had almost achieved Prime status, and the only thing that could possibly make him feel better is a battle against his best pal, Red Me. Danny Unioto comes in first, and we send in Nido. I'm going to go for a Water Pulse, doing a decent amount of damage as he goes for a double kick. After that, he's going to heal up with a Super Potion, and we go for an Ice Beam, bringing it down in 1. Next out comes Starbra. And I'm going to stay in, going for a Poison Jab, bringing this thing down super low, and it goes for a Bubble Beam, that way it can top me off, and I really appreciate the consideration here, buddy. Anywho, we're going to poison it on the second time, and then it goes down to the poison, which is going to lead into Warmillion. And what is it good for? And I'll tell you, absolutely nothing. It goes for a Protect, and I try to punch it, but on the following turn, we break through as it goes for a Bite. After that, we punch it one more time, and it decides to top us off with a Bubble, which is super cool of him, and then we take it down. His final Pokemon, just a regular ordinary Gyarados, comes in and gets the Intimidate off on us. And we're going to go for a neutral Ice Beam, and we get the Freeze off? Anywho, after we knock him down super low, he's going to Thaw, and then just one more Ice Beam takes down this monstrosity. How dare you bring a non-fused Pokemon to a fusion battle, rando? I mean Blue. I'm not used to saying Blue in this game. Look, I know I keep on messing up Rando Blue's name, but I've beaten this game over 50 times for videos alone, never mind streams or just playing on my own. Anywho, we hear a crash on the other side of the room, and we see a couple of rocket runs roughing up Mr. Fuji, the renowned scientist. But before Rando Blue and I can get involved, they force him upstairs to do goodness knows what. But Blue lets us know that we can't make it upstairs without special ghost goggles, because without them, we'd see just how much ectoplasm is all over the place. And the Silph Co makes it so that way everything looks normal. So we both agree to head over to Celadon City to see if we can pick up a pair at the store. While getting a little bit closer to the level cap, Soar evolves into Nidosaur. After finding out that the department store doesn't sell any ghost goggles, we head over to the gym, where we find Rando beating up a couple of rocket grunts. I mean, Blue. You know, I'm just gonna call him whatever name comes out of my mouth. Anywho, this dingus lets us know that Team Rocket has a secret base underneath Celadon City in the sewer system. And since they're the ones that kidnapped Mr. Fuji in the first place, maybe they got a couple of extra pairs of ghost goggles for us. Blue lets us know that he'd like to explore the base together. But first he wants to head to the department store to get some waders, because there's no way he's walking in that poopy water. Then he hits us with a smell you later, which he will, because I'm going in there without waders, because enter Erica, the local gym leader. She's been looking for some assistance in driving Team Rocket out of her city, and we happen to be the first person she saw. So yes, of course I'll help you, Erica. How could I possibly say no? And in the sewers, we're gonna grab ourselves a Grimer. After fighting our way through Team Rocket's secret base, we split up with Erica, and when we find her again, apparently she's already been defeated by Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket. So it looks like it's gonna be up to us, a random child, to defeat this mobster in a Pokemon battle. Giovanni starts off by sending in Arnix, and we send in Nido. I'm going to go for a Water Pulse, and we're going to score a massive hit, as this thing goes for an Acid Spray, which does barely anything to us, but it is going to lower our special defense. After that, Giovanni's going to heal up with a Max Potion, and we can fire off another Water Pulse, rolling a little bit higher this time. And with one more, we take Arnix down. Next up comes Ryros. And I'm going to swap Nido out, and instead, we're going to be sending in Polly. The Ryros thing goes for a Stomp, and we can fire off a ×4 Brick Breaker, getting it down pretty low as it then stomps on us again. After that, Giovanni swaps out, sending in a Haunt Con in a big brain move, so we don't hit it. Punch. Now, assuming a Dark move, we're going to swap out again, this time sending in Soar as he tries to go for another Sucker Punch. And after going for a Payback, we can then go for a Leech Seed, but we miss. And then after that, we get confused, which is unfortunate, but we break through for the Seed. Now this thing is an absolute monster, and after we slap ourselves in the face, we're going to suck up a bit more health. And after taking a Shadow Ball and punching ourselves in the face like 8 times, we're going to heal up a little bit with our Citrus Berry, and we're still in a good spot as we finally snap out of it and go for the Poison. It then goes for a Payback, and I know that a Venoshock will take this thing down, which it does. In comes Ryros again. And we're going to outspeed and go for a Superpower, where we can grab ourselves the KO, defeating Giovanni. And with Giovanni defeated, he decides that he and Team Rocket are sick of this base. They have much better and more important things to do. Then they leave. And Erica lets us know that behind her on this table, a pair of ghost goggles. And with them, we won't be able to see the ectoplasm, and we'll be able to go save Mr. Fuji. But before we do, we should totally battle her at her gym. And now it's going to be time for us to take on Erica and her grassy goons. She starts off by sending in Exegguduo, which I completely forgot was her first Pokemon, as we send in Soar. I'm going to go for a Poison Powder, which I can't hit it with, apparently, and then we're going to get hits wicked hard. After that, we're going to go for a Venoshock, or we can score a pretty massive hit, as this thing goes for another Pluck, getting me down to just 5 HP, but then even though I can't use Poison Powder on it, it then gets poisoned. How's for that logic? Anyways, now that it's poisoned, a Venoshock will take it down. Next now comes Tanape. And we're going to swap out Soar and then send in V instead, as this thing decides to go for an Ancient Power. I'm then able to go for a Technician Boosted Confusion, where it's more than enough to take the Tanape down. Which is going to lead into Vileplume. We're going to outspeed again, going for a Confusion on the Vileplume, getting it down way into the red, activating its berry. We fortunately get the Confusion off, and it punches itself in the face no less, which means with just one more Confusion, we take down Vileplume, and we defeat Erica. And when rolling for our next party member, we're going to grab ourselves Slash the Sandshrew. In Pokemon Tower, we're going to grab ourselves a Ghastly. Also, while fighting our way up Pokemon Tower, Polly is going to ascend into their final form of Tanrath. But as hilarious as all that hair is, I absolutely love this sprite, so we're gonna go with that. After reaching the top of Pokemon Tower, we rescue Mr. Fuji, who apparently didn't need to be rescued because Team Rocket's not even here anymore. He lets us know that the Rocket Grunts showed him so much ectoplasm that he had no choice but to give them the plans to create the Master Ball, a Pokeball that captures Pokemon without fail. He then hands us a flute and tells us that we need to make it to Saffron City as quickly as possible if we're going to stop Team Rocket. And I don't know how a flute's going to do that, but okay. And on our way to Fuchsia City, we're going to dance for this sleeping bear, and then run away, because this sleeping bear is a duplicate. Over on Route 12, we're going to grab ourselves a Bellsprout. Over on 13, we're going to grab a Farfetch'd. On 14, we're going to grab a Gloom. On 18, a Doduo. And a Kangaskhan in the Safari Zone. And since I need Will-O-Wisp for Koga's Chinook, we're going to be fusing up Sandshrew with Growlithe to get this adorable little Growlshrew, who's immediately going to start going through their evolutions, first into Growlslash. And as much as I love this base sprite, these little furballs remind me of that Yeti beta Pokemon, so I'm going to go with that one. And now it's time for us to take on Koga and his poison Pokemon. Koga starts off with Venomer, and we send in Slash. On the first turn, I'm going to go for a Flame Wheel on this thing, and we can grab ourselves the Oko, which is great as Magnafin comes in next. We're going to go for the same thing here, going for another Flame Wheel where we can take it down in just one, which is going to lead into Beether. who's gonna go for a pin missile, doing a bit of damage to us, and when we fire back with a flame wheel, we get it down super low, as Koga then uses this for his hyper potion. And then after getting it down way into the red again, we can take it down on the following turn. His final Pokemon Chinook comes in. And from here, I know I need to go for a Will-O-Wisp on this thing because all it does is use Toxic and Takedown, and quite frankly, I'm not dealing with that. After it goes for a Toxic on us, we can start doing what we do best, getting a magnitude 9. Okie dokie. And we scored a massive hit, finishing it off in just one shot. And I was honestly expecting to have to fight for that one. And when rolling for our next Pokemon we can fuse up, it's gonna be for Gara, the Magikarp. But I'm gonna try to get through Silph Co without adding anybody else to our squad. And for saving everybody in Silph Co, we're gonna grab ourselves a Lapras. After saving everybody in Silph Co, we run into Blue. When he had seen what was going on outside, he knew he had to do something to help. So he burst into action into Silph Co, ready to save everybody. But when he got into the lobby, he saw that we had already saved everybody. Us. Red. The most awesome and super cool Pokemon trainer ever. And he doesn't like that, because that's what he wants to be. Blue starts off by sending in Nidogeot, and we're gonna send in V. I'm gonna go for a Nasty Plot to double our special attack, as the Nidogeot goes for an Earth Power, which I did not know it had. But after taking that, we can go for a Power Gem and quickly take down the Nidogeot. Next up comes Tauros. It goes for an Intimidate, but we will not be intimidated by a Taurus's, and we take it down at just one Psychic, which is gonna lead into Electados. And after it gets another Intimidate off on us, we're gonna go for a Stab +2 Psychic, taking it down in one as well. Next out comes Vermilion. And honestly, I might as well just keep on going for it, and we go for another Psychic, which is obviously more than enough to take it down, which leads into Starbra. And with that, we defeat Blue. After an overwhelming defeat, I see the Blue is incredibly dejected. What to do? I know. I could use his help in taking on Giovanni. So I place my hand on his shoulder and let him know that together, we will take on the big boss Rocket. So enter the Silph President's office, where he and Giovanni are in the middle of an important business meeting. Master Balls, he wants them. Silph President, he can't make them fast enough. They've only ever been able to create literally one of these things, and Giovanni wants a whopping 3. And he's not leaving till he gets it. He then threatens to show Mr. President the same ectoplasm that they showed Mr. Fuji. But that's when Giovanni notices that I, Red and Blue, really cool and powerful Pokemon trainers have emerged. And it looks like it's going to be time for us to take on Giovanni for the 3rd time. 3rd time? 2nd time. Well, we saw him in Mount Moon, but this is only the 2nd fight. Anywho, Primarino and Reross come in, and we're going to send Nidogeot and Polly. Nidogeot's going to go for an Earth Power on the Primarino, getting it down to about a 3rd, as it then tries to go for a Screech, but misses. I didn't even realize it could miss, and we go for a Giga Drain on the Reross, bringing it down to about a 3rd, and then it's going to go for a Drill Run on us, doing next to nothing. Nidogeot is then going to go for another Earth Power on the Primarino, taking it down, and I'm pretty sure they updated the movesets on this thing, because I do not remember it having an Earth Power, but anywho, it goes down. Genkan is then going to come in, as well as Sand Queen. Sand Queen is going to kick up a Sandstorm, which is a little unfortunate, and then a Shadow Ball on Nidogeot's going to do a bit of damage, as a Poison Sting manages to get the poison off on this thing. And anywho, we're going to go for the Giga Drain on Sand Queen, and we don't do a lot of damage to it. On the following turn, Sand Queen is going to go for a Gyro Ball on Nidogeot, doing next to nothing, and the Poison Point obviously can't do anything, and a Shadow Ball is going to take the big bird down. We're then going to go for a knockoff on Genkan, getting it down just below half. Blue is then going to send in his Tauros, getting the Intimidate off on his side of the field. Sand Queen then goes for another Gyro Ball, this time on Tauros, as it goes for a Workup, and then a Dark Pulse is going to bring it down almost to half, and we go for a Giga Drain, getting it down pretty low. I'm surprised that Giovanni didn't heal up. I guess I should have gone for Genkan. Giovanni then uses his first Max Potion on the following turn, as this thing decides to go for a Dig, and we unfortunately can't hit it. Sand Queen then finishes off her Dig on the Tauros, doing a bit of damage, as the Tauros then goes for a Zen Headbutt, and then a Shadow Ball is going to come in on us, doing quite a bit of damage, but it will activate our Citrus Berry, healing us back up. We can then go for a Giga Drain, which is going to ultimately finish off Genkan. We've defeated Giovanni. After defeating Giovanni, he says that their work here is done, because the 3rd and final Master Ball just duded out of the machine. And they're on to the next phase of their plan. And Giovanni and the rest of Team Rocket blast themselves off to parts unknown. And for saving everybody in Silph Co, we're gonna grab a Cyndaquil. And now it's time for us to take on Sabrina and her psychic Pokemon. She starts off with Hypmine, who's a super cool dude, and we send in B. And I'm gonna go for a nasty plot on the first turn, and so is Hypmine. And we're gonna go for a Stab Technician boosted Swift, where we can take the Hypmine down in one hit. Next up comes Espeon, and we're gonna go for another Swift, and we can take it down in one as well, which will lead into a Labro. We can then take it down with one Swift as well, which is going to lead into Genkazam, her ace, who I completely misclick on, and then we get hit with a Psycho Cut. But anywho, we can go for a Power Gem on the following turn, breaking it down pretty low as it goes for another Psycho Cut. And Sabrina doesn't even bother healing up, so after just one more hit, we take it down, defeating Sabrina, showing we're the Psychic Masters. And after showing this kid a butterfly, he's going to give us a Pineco, which will come in handy later. We're then going to stop by our house and grab a Charmander egg from our sister. And on Route 21, we're going to grab a Tentacool. Before we face off against Blaine, we unlock the ability to use Snore. But I'm still going to save it for later. And now it's time for us to take on Blaine and his fire guys. Blaine starts off by sending in Glue Dash, and we send in Slash. On the first turn, I'm going to go for a Swords Dance, but not before I get hit by a Flamethrower. And after that, this thing is going to go for a Solar Beam. But before it can finish us off, we go ahead and take it down with a Magnitude 7, which is going to lead into Magong, who we can outspeed, and we score a Magnitude 10. Leading into Chartdactyl. We're then going to go for an Extreme Speed, doing just over 50% as he goes for a Sky Drop, picking us up. After that, we're going to get thrown on the ground for minimal damage, before Blaine uses the full restore and we can go for another Extreme Speed. And with one more, we take down the Chartdactyl, which... And not wanting to risk a big hit, we're going to swap Slash out, and instead we're going to send in Nido as this thing goes for a Confuse Ray. And after punching ourselves in the face, it's going to roar us out, and it's going to send in Pika. And I guess for the heck of it, I'll just go for a Thunderbolt and see what we do here, as I do just about 50%, and we get the paralysis off, which is huge. And going for another Thunderbolt, we manage to score a crit, taking it down, and Pika finishes off Blaine. And with the power of Dig unlocked, only Arrow remains before we face off against Zapmalkuno. And knowing I'm not really equipped to deal with Zapmalkuno, we're going to take our Pineco and Dig, and we're going to fuse them up to get ourselves Digco, who, after we shove a couple of candies in its face, is going to evolve into Dugtress. After finding our way over to Mount Ember, we find Team Rocket once again. It turns out that Giovanni has managed to capture all 3 Cantonian legendary birds, and what's more, he's mastered the triple fusion technique necessary to create the Super Bird. And with this Super Bird, Giovanni plans on taking over the entirety of the Kanto region. The Super Bird's a dumb name. You should call it something cool like Zapmalkuno. And this is when Giovanni hears our cool idea, an even better name than his. And he says that after he stops us, everyone will think he's the one that came up with the name Zapmalkuno. And it looks like it's going to be up to us to defeat Giovanni for the 3rd time on our 4th meeting. Giovanni starts off by sending in Zapmalkuno, and we send in Dig. And if you've seen a lot of my Infinite Fusion videos before, you know this is my favorite way to deal with this bird. Take your fortress, give it Explosion, give it a normal gem, and then see what happens. And when we go for an explosion, we take all 3 heads down super low, but we don't manage to KO any of them, which is unfortunate, but we're going to send in Pika. And with a Thunderbolt, we can successfully take down Moltres. About half, which means Pika can easily take down Articuno with another Thunderbolt. And when Zapdos goes for a Drill Peck, we get knocked down to just 2 HP. And with one more Thunderbolt, we take down the final head, and our little Pikachu shows this thing who's boss. Dejected and defeated by a Dugtrio and a Pikachu, the 3 Cantonian birds defuse, and they go back to where they're supposed to be. And Giovanni leaves, dejected and defeated, going to his mommy's house. After finding and beating up the fossil guy a bunch of times, we're going to head over to Cinnabar Island and give him a Jaw Fossil. That way we can grab ourselves a Tyrant. And now it's time for us to take on Giovanni once again for our 8th and final bad. Daddy Gio's going to start things off with Ryros, and we send in Nido. And I'm going to go for a super effective Earth Power right away, and we do about 50% because this thing's not Rocket's Ground, you silly goose. and we wake up and go for a Surf, and we take it down in 1. Next up is going to come Glystar. And he's not messing around, sending his ace in right away, and a Thrash does nearly 50% to us, and we can fire off with a Surf, taking it down super low. But since he's locked into the Thrash, he's not going to heal up, and when we get knocked down to 50, we're going to heal back up with our Berry, and one more Surf takes down Glystar. Go Champ's up next, and we can go for another Surf, and we can take this thing down super low, but it's going to fire off an Earthquake, and it's going to crit Nido, KOing him. So in comes Polly, I guess. Giovanni then goes for a full restore, and we can go for a Power Whip, bringing him down pretty low. And Giovanni's going to then go for another full restore, and we can go for a Giga Drain, taking him down super low again. And after that, just one more Giga Drain takes down Gochamp, which is going to lead into Rylax. And we can go for another Giga Drain, bringing him down pretty low, and luckily he misses a Horn Drill, and then we can go for another Giga Drain, taking Rylax down. This is going to lead into his final Pokemon, Electario, who's going to go for a Thunder Wave, paralyzing us, and we're, paralyzed. And after that, he goes for a Bulldoze, lowering our already crappy speed, and we continue to be paralyzed as he goes for another Bulldoze. Once we break through with the Power Whip, though, we KO it in 1, and we defeat Giovanni, but we lost another Pokemon. For our final encounter, we're going to grab ourselves a Rhyhorn on Victory Road. Now that we need to start working on our Elite Four team, let's fuse Snorlax up with Gengar to get Genlax. And I think this creepy Totoro is 100% necessary. Next up, we're going to fuse Gyarados and Rhyperior to get ourselves Rhydos. And with our team finalized, let's take one quick look at it before we face off against the Elite Four. First up, we have Polly the Tanwrath with Giga Drain, Power Whip, Surf, and Brick Break. V the Espeon with Psychic, Swift, Nasty Plot, and Power Gem. Thor the Nidosaur with Venoshock, Energy Ball, Leech Seed, and Toxic. Gyara the Rhydos with Earthquake, Ice Punch, Brunch, and Dragon Dance. Snore the Genlax with Dark Pulse, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, and Flamethrower. And finally Pika the Clefchu with Draining Kiss, Thunderbolt, Nasty Plot, and Minimize. I decided to use V instead of Arrow because I thought it would be better for type coverage purposes. And it felt weird taking Pika off of Red's team, so sorry Arrow, you are gonna stay in the box. And first is gonna be Lorelei and her Icy Ice Guys. Magmargon comes in and we send in Pika. Knowing this thing's gonna go for a Hail, I set up a Nasty Plot, but it doesn't, it goes for a Flamethrower. After that, we're going to go for a Minimize on the following turn, and it connects with another Flamethrower, getting me down to just 17 HP. Now in a horrible predicament, we're going to go for the Thunderbolt, where we can quickly pick up the KO. Next out comes Mombro, and we're going to go for another Thunderbolt, and we can grab the Oko on the Mombro. Up next comes Tentacaster, and once again, we can go for another Thunderbolt, and we can take it down in just 1, which is going to lead into Gin Growth. And I have never seen this sprite. It is perfect. But anywho, I'm going to swap Pika out, and instead we're going to send in Snore as the Gin Growth goes for an Ice Punch. After that, it puts us to sleep with a Sleep Powder, which is incredibly frustrating. And we're going to stay in as it goes for a big ol' Smoochy Kiss on us. After that, it's going to seat us up, and we continue to sleep through it. And the Leech Seed's going to start doing its thing as we get hit with another Ice Punch. But once we wake up, we can take it out with a Flamethrower, which leads into Weavras, her final Pokemon, who goes for a Night Slash, scoring a crit and KOing Snore. So we're going to send in Pika. And I'm going to go for a big ol' Smoochy Kiss, doing about 50% of this thing as it goes for a Night Slash on us, which is not very effective, and fortunately we get the static off. And after we go for another one healing back up, it goes for a Surf, doing some more damage to us. Lorelei then uses her first full restore, and I'm going to go for some more Smoochy Kisses, getting back up to full. Now that it's back down in the red again, it goes for a Surf. And knowing she's going to use her second full restore, I'm going to go for a Nasty Plot on the following turn before we go for another Smoochy Kiss, getting it down way into the red so we can take another Surf. And after that, we can go for one more Thunderbolt, finishing it off, and we defeat Lorelei. I can't believe that I lost Snore on his literally first battle. And now it's time for us to face off against Bruno and his rock-hard fight boys. Mavire comes in first, and we're going to send in V. I'm going to go for a nasty plot right away to double our special attack as it goes for a cross chop, getting me down to 11 before we pick up the Yoko. Next up comes D-Champ. And once again, we go for a Psychic and we bring it down to its sturdy, and fortunately it misses its submission. And after he heals up, we can go for a Psychic, bringing him down to his sturdy once again before he uses a second full restore. And after going for 2 more Psychics, we can take D-Champ down, which leads into Cycross. And I'm going to swap V out, and I'm going to send in Gara as he goes for an X-Scissor. It then goes for a Swords Dance as we decide to go for a Dragon Dance. I'm then going to go for an Ice Punch, and we do not a lot as it goes for another Swords Dance. And connecting with another punch, it then goes for a Close Combat, bringing me down to just 30 HP. And we can follow up with 1 more Ice Punch, taking it down, which leads into Marichan. And this thing normally goes for counters, so I'm going to swap out, sending in Pika as it goes for a double team. So I'm going to start going for minimizes to do the same thing, and it hits us with a boomerang, taking down Pika. Okay, so let's send in Soar. And we can go for an Energy Ball, bringing this thing down super low as it goes for a Dynamic Punch. And after we miss, we can connect with another one, taking it down. Which leads into Magnetics' final Pokemon, who tries to go for a Zap Cannon but misses, and then we can go for a Leech Seed. And I'm going to swap Soar out and instead send in Polly as he goes for an Iron Tail. He then goes for a Lock On, and we can go for an Earthquake, bringing him down pretty low. And now that he's down into the red, he hits us with another Iron Tail, and we can go for an Earthquake, taking down Magnetics. And we defeat Bruno, and we are in a bad spot. And now it's time for us to take on Agatha and her spooky specters. First up comes Mizbat, and we send in Gara. So my plan here is to stack up a couple of Dragon Dances, and then hopefully I can just OHKO all of our Pokemon because I'm in a really bad spot. Now that we're +2, we break through the confusion to get to +3 and take a Shadow Ball. I'm then going to go for a Crunch, and we can quickly take down the Mizbat. Next out comes Gendoom. Thankfully, we snap out of our confusion, and we can go for another Crunch, taking down the Doggo, which is going to lead into Umtur. And even though Crunch is not going to be very effective, it still does about half, as the Umtur then goes for a Dark Pulse, doing barely anything to us. And then following up with an Ice Punch, we can take it out, which leads into Snorgar, who I know is poison, but it unfortunately has Levitate as it goes for a Body Slam, which is going to activate our Berry. I can still go for a Crunch though, I guess, and we're going to do a decent amount of damage as it goes for a Curse. Then going for another Crunch, we can take it down, which leads into Wubgar. So we're going to go for another Crunch where we can safely take it down, and thankfully, we defeat Agatha. And now it's time for us to take on Lance and his mythical dragon dudes. Lance starts off by sending in Dragados, and we are going to send in Gara. Normally I like to go for a couple of Dragon Dances, but I'm not going to do that because I know this thing's going to go for a Hydro Pump, and we can fire back with an Ice Punch, picking up the Yoko anyways. Koganite comes in after that, and it's going to outspeed us, going for an Ancient Power, which is going to do a decent amount of damage, and we can go for an Ice Punch, doing about half. So since this thing is somehow faster than us, I need to go for at least 1 Dragon Dance here. So now that we're at +1 attack and speed, 1 more Ice Punch takes down the Koganite, which leads into Pteranodactyl. And risking staying in, I'm going to go for another Ice Punch, doing about 2/3 as it goes for a Brave Bird, which leaves Gara on 1 HP. Knowing the Lance is going to heal up, I am going to go for 1 more Dragon Dance because I really do not have an option here. And going for a +2 Ice Punch, it's not enough to take it down before Gara goes down. So in comes V. As Lance uses his second full restore, we can go for a Power Gem, doing about 60%, and 1 more takes it down, which leads into Porydra. And we're going to go for a single Nasty Plot as this thing fires off a Tri-Attack, hurting us, but fortunately we burn it back. And going for a Stab Psychic, we can take it down, which leads into Typhonair, his final Pokemon. And 1 more Psychic takes it out, and we're going to the championship, but with only 3 Pokemon. As we enter the Champions Chamber, we make eye contact with Blue, our greatest rival. Together we have collected all 8 badges, stopped Team Rocket, and saved the Kanto region. Me, the scrappy underdog, and him, grandson of world-renowned scientist Professor Oak. We are both the main characters of this story, but there can only be one champion. Blue starts off by sending in Nita Giat, and we're gonna send in V. And I'm hoping I can tank a couple hits from this thing because I just need to stack up Nasty Plants and hope I can sweep, as a wing attack does about a third. And after we get to +4, it goes for another wing attack, and we are down wicked low, but we take it out with a Thunderbolt. Next up is gonna come Riper Mortar. And we're gonna go for a +4 Stab Psychic, which we can take it down in just one, which is gonna lead into Electados. And even though it's not super effective, we're holding a spoon, baby. So we go for a Psychic where we can take it out as well, which leads into Blastizard, who is ×4 weak to electricity, and a Thunderbolt takes down his ace no problem. When Tortor comes in after that, we're gonna go for a neutral Thunderbolt on this thing, and fortunately it goes down, which is gonna lead into Starkazam, who we can outspeed, go for a super effective Thunderbolt in Oko, which means I made the right call in the end, putting V in instead of Arrow. And with that, we become the Pokemon League champions. And that, everybody, is how I beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Infinite Fusion using only Red's Pokemon from the Pokemon Adventures manga. If you liked the video, the sound of my voice, and you made it this far and you're not subscribed yet, then what are you doing? Hit that button. No, you want to. We do a new Nuzlocke run just about every week, and more often than not, it's of Pokemon Infinite Fusion. So let me know in the comments down below what types of runs you'd like to see in the future. But anywho, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you all next time. See ya!